What I'd like to do now is talk about a dental circumstance, maybe a decision or a strategy that you're considering in your practice that would be best suited for each style. So let's do that to maybe put some context into this. So for some practicality, let's again start with decision-making style number one: ready, aim, fire. I would say a great decision that would be in the context of a dental office to use ready, aim, fire would be your decision to successfully drop PPO plans. That would be a great decision-making style to use, because what you're going to do, you're going to assess your readiness as a practice. You're going to make the decision that that's something I want to do. Is I want to regain control of my practice, quit turning over the determination of my fees to some third party that doesn't give one iota about the quality of care or my style of practice. I'm going to take that back over. So you've made that, that direction. And now you choose to do it very systematically. Ready, aim. The aim part would be walking through our 6 steps to successfully drop PPO plans. You're going to walk through, you're going to complete those. By the way, Naren, why don't we put in the show notes the Thriving Dental Show episode we did called the 6 steps to successfully drop PPO plans. So the aim part of that would be to systematically walk through all 6 steps, because by doing so, you're going to be doing the work that will allow you to keep as many of your existing in-network offices, in-network patients as possible. And then when you've completed it, what are you going to do next? Fire. You're going to go. Mm-hmm. So that might be a really good example of ready, aim, fire. Does that make sense to you, Naren?
Absolutely.
Would you choose any of the other 3 as? So you're welcome to disagree with me. Would you pick any of the other 3 as being superior to that one for that decision?
No, and the reason I think I picked this is, for example, you have the PPO write-off calculator. So figure out how much you're giving up in write-offs. And of course, that's aiming. That's, doing some research, finding out the cost and the benefit of the decision. And then I think figure out how to successfully resign from PPO plan, which again is aiming. And I know you have the 6 steps, Gary. So, learn the 6 steps, see if those seem like something you can do.
Right. And that decision-making style matches nicely to that objective.
Yeah. So there's a lot of thinking to do. Yeah.
Naren, let's go to the second decision-making style, ready, fire, aim. And let me use an example where ready, fire, aim might be the most effective decision-making style. And here's the circumstance I'm going to use for an example there. Let's say you get an application from someone looking for a job, and it could be a hygienist, it could be an assistant, it could be an admin team member. Maybe they've heard you have a great practice and they're interested in working for a great practice. You're not advertising an opening, but someone shows up interested in working in your practice. If you've done an interview with that person, maybe even a working interview, and you feel like this person brings an amazing talent and spirit and experience to your practice, then I'm going to suggest that maybe ready, fire, aim is the best decision-making style. Because you don't know exactly how you're going to put that person to use in your practice. You don't know exactly. Maybe you don't know, now not so much for a hygienist, but maybe for an assistant or for an admin team member, you don't know exactly what their seat on the bus is going to be. But maybe you use the ready, fire, aim approach because you're always growing. One of the things that I like to embrace is the concept of at least double-digit percentage growth every year. So you're always growing. You're always looking for amazing team members. And maybe you don't know exactly the seat on the bus they're going to go, but you have faith that you'll figure it out. Ready, fire, aim. Naren, does that make sense in the possible application of that decision-making style?
Yes, absolutely, Gary. I mean, sometimes you get lucky and you come across a person in this case who is amazing and you don't have a perfect role, but your gut tells you, everything tells you, you need to hire that person. So
if we went to the first one, ready, aim, fire, we wouldn't hire them because we didn't have it all planned out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that could be a shortcoming in using that first method, the ready, aim, fire. So that's the second one. Now let's go to the third one. Ready, aim, 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 and we forget the plot and we never fire. Now, now, what could possibly be a good example when you might use that approach? When you might use that approach. Now, I'm going to use an example, and I'll just sort of explain this, and I want you to kind of think about this as we go through. Um, Maybe the decision revolves around your real estate, your office, the real estate. And maybe you have a very nice office. The lease is actually functional. You've got enough space. It's a good location and it works really well. But ultimately, you would like, in your perfect world, you would like to own your own space. You're leasing the one, but maybe you'd like to own your own space. Does that make sense, Naren?
Yes.
Now, in many cases, I feel strongly, we did a whole real estate episode. I feel strongly about if you are in a market where you can own your real estate, ideally, I'd like you to own your own real estate, because then, you have an investment that serves your practice, but also serves your investment portfolio. But let's say you go down the path of finding something that you can buy, and nothing you find, you go down this path, and nothing you find would be an improvement over what you have. So you keep aiming. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. Let's look somewhere else. And maybe you end up looking at 20 or 30 listings, and you discover that nothing is superior to what you have. Then I think it'd be perfectly okay to never pull the trigger and take action on it, because what you found through your aiming process was nothing was an improvement over what you have. But you don't necessarily have to give up on the idea of owning real estate in your portfolio, because you could choose to buy either residential or commercial real estate outside of your office to meet your desire to have real estate in your portfolio. Does that make sense, Naren?
It makes sense, Gary. I think what you're saying is you have a certain criteria that you're looking for, and then if that criteria is not met, you don't pull the trigger. Now, one thought that just popped into my head is some people have the wrong mindset. Like, for example, when they're dropping insurance, they're afraid of losing patients. So that's the lens they're looking at it through, which is this fear, which is not real, but that's what they think it is. So they keep aiming, and they don't drop the PPO plans because of that fear. Right. So it's interesting. So sometimes it works for you, like in the example you gave, Gary. Right. Sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't. You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's a good example of where I wouldn't recommend that style in dropping insurance. We see that in my coaching, where they just can't pull the trigger on the drop in the plan. Let me go to the fourth style and suggest a circumstance in dentistry where the fourth style, ready, fire. So the example there might be choosing a particular clinical area that you have interest in, but you haven't quite figured out how it would integrate into your practice. It's just something you're interested in. You'd like to add it to your skill set. You'd love to do the CE that would require you to master it. You haven't fully thought things out. You haven't thought how it applies in your practice. But you're going to dive in headlong because it's something you really enjoy. It's exciting to you. It'll help you in your mind better serve your patients, and you just don't have all the details figured out. That would be a good example of ready, fire, because the one thing I've noticed among world-class dentists, and another denominator, is that they participate in a massive amount of CE.